Hello, everyone. So it's always good to kind of start off with a funny moment. So meet my twin, Aaron. We both have the same name. So I guess that's how we're going to start off. But no, yeah, my name is Troy David. I actually work for the Pennsylvania Career Link. I'm the reentry specialist and mentor for South Central Pennsylvania. I am also a returning citizen. So we do want to talk about our program, but I want you to get a better idea why I'm in this position. I feel like I should tell you a little bit about myself and my journey and how I arrived here. So I am born and raised from the city of Philadelphia. Uh, I grew up with my mother and my father. And I would tell you, I had a beautiful, beautiful life with my family. At that time, I grew up in a middle class neighborhood. One of the things about me growing up, I ran track. I was the second fastest in track in Philadelphia. I had a scholarship to go to the University of Kentucky. My dream as a young man was to go in the Air Force, and or I wanted to be a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. So none of that happened. So for all you Eagle fans out there or Giant, anybody that's in our division, sorry, Aaron. So, but anyway, growing up, I was one of those young men who, my mother, she made me go to church like every day. Like, so I always felt like church was only on Sundays, but for her, church was Sundays, church was Tuesdays, church was Saturday. Anytime she could get us in church, that's when church was. So people say, Troy, you're going to church Sunday? I said, I already went to church, So that was the kind of mom that I had. My mother, she worked at Temple University for 40 years. My dad was a jack of all trades. He drove a truck, he repaired furniture, he had his own farm, and all those different skills and responsibilities and stuff he instilled in me. The one thing that I suffered from as a young man, I had what I call severe low self-esteem. So growing up, I was smart in school. I was a B average. People in the neighborhood, they said Troy loved to work. I would get out, cut grass, get my little push mower, and I go out and cut grass. When it's time to snow, I get out and shovel snow, make $3 or $4, and I'd go find jobs. Now this was way back in the day, so we'll figure out my age soon. For those of you who don't know, I'll just keep it secret for right now. So anyway, I had a nice life, but the one thing about the low self-esteem, there were individuals who were in my neighborhood who I wanted to be like. So there was 3 individuals specifically who I kind of looked up to, who had all the girls, who had all the money and different things like that. And I wanted to be a part of that. I was very, very shy individual growing up. I remember we used to have these house parties, and when we would go in the house parties in the basements, all the guys would be dancing and everything, and I would be standing up against the wall like this. So the girls would come up and they say, hey, Troy, you want to dance? And I would be sitting there shivering like, so I was just a very, very shy young man at that time. As I said, I did good in school, so I was doing great. So this one particular night back in 1984, I had finished my homework and I wanted to go outside and hang out with the guys. So my mother at the time, she had just gotten home from work. And I said, Mom, can I go outside? And she said, did you finish your schoolwork? And I said, yes, I finished my schoolwork. She said, you can go outside, but stay on the steps. So I said, I got to stay on the step. I said, I got to stay on the steps? And she said, yeah. I said, come on, Mom, I want to go up the steps. So I sat on the steps for about 10 minutes. After that, 3 individuals drove up in a car and they said, yo, Troy. And I said, yo, and they said, what's up? And I said, what you doing? I said, I'm just here sitting on the steps today. So the guy said, listen, well, we're going to go out, man. And, we're going to look for some girls, man. You want to go? So I said, no, I can't go. I got to stay on the steps. So they kept saying, come on, man, don't be scared, man. Don't let your mother hold you back. And I kept saying, I can't go off the steps. Finally, I ended up getting in the car with the three individuals. The three individuals, one individual, his name was Lamont. The other individual, his name was Trap. We literally call him Trap, Trap. Trap was a very good boxer. So whenever you would throw a punch at Trap, he would catch it with his hands and trap it. So we called him Trap. That was his name. And the other individual was JC. JC was probably the best boxers that had come through Philadelphia back in those times. So me, I was just a 17-year-old kid running track, wasn't out in the streets, but wanted to hang with them. I wanted to, my biggest thing is that I wanted a girlfriend. They had all the girls. So I figured if I hang with them, I get a girlfriend. That was my state of mind at that time. These individuals were known in the neighborhood, as I said, for fighting. Many of them had been in and out of the juvenile facilities over the years. And also because they were in their 20s, they had did some time upstate, maybe like a year or two up at the state prisons. So I ended up getting in the car with them. We drove around for about 10 minutes. We didn't find any girls. So finally, the driver of the car, JC, looks back at Lamont, who was sitting next to me in the car. Now, Lamont was the one I looked up to the most. Lamont was a flashy guy. He had the gold chains, and he just had the car. He had everything. At least I thought he did anyway at that age. So JC, he looks back at Lamont. He said, yo, you're going to get your young buck to do it? So Lamont looks at me and he says, you're going to do it? And I said, do what? He said, we're going to get some money, man. And I said, no, I don't want to do this. So I knew what get some money meant. To the average person, you're going to get some money. So what do you mean? We're going to go cut grass, we're going to shovel snow, we're going to sell papers. To this particular group, it meant either robbing, stealing, doing something that was wrong. I knew that was wrong. And this is why in the moment I said, no, I don't want to do it. They continued on and on and on, calling me names and different things. So at the time, instead of just getting out the car, because I always ask myself, why didn't I get out the car? The reason why I didn't get out the car is because I felt like pleasing them meant more to me than what was right or what was wrong. I actually didn't even think about what they were suggesting, whether or not it was right or wrong. I knew it inside, but I really didn't think about it because I wanted to please them. So they made out this plan. They said, listen, we're going to get some money. We're going to rob this store. The store is up on such and such street. And so all you have to do, Troy, is when the guy comes out, walk up behind him with the gun and just take the bag. He's going to have a brown bag on his arm. So I said, no, I can't do that, man. I just want to go home. So they kept going and going and going. Finally, I said, okay, I'll do it. So the driver of the car, he reaches under the seat and he pulls out a weapon, a gun. Now, I had never seen the gun. My mom, my dad, there were no weapons in our house. At least I never had seen any. So I had never even held a gun, even seen the gun other than on television. So he gives me this gun and my hands are literally shaking. And I take the gun. I didn't check it to see if there were bullets in the weapon or anything, because I didn't even know how to do that. So I had it and I put it in my pocket. So they said, listen, you're a track star, man. No one's going to catch you. All you got to do is put the gun to his side and take off running. So when they started saying that, I started saying, well, okay. And then they said, well, if you want to hang with us, this is what you got to do. So they take me to where the store was at. An individual comes out of the store. He's got the brown bag under his arm. I walk up behind this individual and I put the gun to his side and I tell him, I have my hand on the bag and I said, give me the money. So he didn't want to let the bag go. So I started pulling on the bag. And as I turned to run, something inside of me said, turn around. I mean, as loud as you hear my voice, that's how it sounded to me. So as I turned around with the bag and the weapon in my hand, he was pulling a gun. It was a big gun. Turns out, after further investigation, after the crime, it was a 357 Magnum. So thank goodness, thank God I'm sitting here today. So when I turned around, I fired at the ground. I can't tell you what made me not shoot him, but it wasn't in me to be some calculated killer. I naturally just turned around, fired at the ground. Remember now, I didn't even know if there were even bullets in the weapon. So I fired at the ground 3 times. That held him off. I took off running up the street. The one thing I didn't tell you that it was October 31st, 1984. So it was Halloween night around 7:30. Back in those days, some of you may know, the kids on Halloween, they would just be out. You know, we didn't have all these worries and these different things today. So the streets were crowded with kids. So there's a hill. So after I shot at the ground, I took off running up this hill. So remember, I'm the track star, but he took off running after me. So he should have been a track star. So he's running up the street. He's shooting at me. He's getting closer. So I'm running, I'm vomiting. The money is flying in the air. I'm crying. I got the gun. I'm more afraid than he is because I don't think he was afraid because he was really chasing me. He was, I believe he was, I forget what nationality he was, but what he was saying was not English. And so I'm running up the street and he's getting closer and I'm getting more and more afraid. And he's pow, pow, pow. So as I'm running, because he's getting closer, I fired the weapon in the air. And when I fired the weapon in the air, I was able to get into a driveway. So I ended up getting away from him. So I get home. So I have a sister. So my sister says, what were you doing? Were you out there racing? Because one of the things I used to do, people used to challenge me, Troy, I can beat you running. So I would race for $10, $15 to make a couple bucks. And I would win. So when I got home, that was the excuse I gave my sister. So I went in the basement. And when I went in the basement, my dad came home. So my dad, he had noticed that I was sweating and everything. So I just told him that I was out racing. I kind of got in trouble for that, but then I had to get back out the house because I still had the weapon on me. So I got out the house. When I went out, who do I see? I see the 3 guys. So the first thing they say is, they say, Troy, where's the money at? I said, I don't have the money. I lost the money. So Lamont says, well, you know, somebody got killed. Somebody got shot. Somebody died. So I thought that maybe he was just trying to scare me because I knew that I had fired the weapon at the ground. I knew that I had fired in the air and no one was hit. So they said, come on, come on. So they take me, they put me back in the car. And when we get in the car, the driver, JC, says, give me the weapon. So I give him the weapon, they drive off, they take the weapon, they put it in the sewer hole. So as we're driving, there's a radio station in Philadelphia called KYW News Radio. It's well-known radio, it's been around for, who knows, 70, 80 years. And it says, KYW News Radio, man shot and killed, you know, at Vernon Road and True Avenue. So when I heard that, my heart dropped because I knew that's where we were at. Like I was scared. What they did was they told me, get out the car. So they took me, put me out the car in an area of Philadelphia. I didn't know where I was at. So I found my way home. I ended up calling someone. I get home and my mother's home. I was able to get back in the house without her knowing that I had left that night. So when I get home, I go in my room, I go to sleep. When I got up in the morning, I said, well, everything must be okay. My mother didn't say anything to me. This was my state of mind. I wasn't concerned about anything but my mother finding out. So the next day I go to school. So as I get on the school bus, all the kids are pointing and whispering. So I'm saying to myself, like, how do they know? So I go to school, no one would talk to me. They wouldn't say anything about anything. So as I'm going home that day, nothing happened. There were no police. My mother didn't say anything. So I'm thinking, okay, everything must be okay. Nothing happened. The next day I go home. While I'm walking up the street that I live on, I notice a bunch of unmarked cars. So I go back and sit on the very steps where my mother originally told me not to get off of. When I sat on those steps, you would have thought that I was Osama bin Laden. There were helicopters, police came from everywhere. So the police come, they say, "Are you Troy David?" And I said, "Yes." They said, "You're under arrest for the murder and robbery of such and such, such and such." They took me, put me in a police car. The detective roughed me up a little bit, and they took me down to the police station. When I got to the police station, the detectives were there. They did allow me to call my mother, but it took her time to get there. This was, I guess, maybe 2-3 days later. So the day that the police actually arrested me was November 2nd. My birthday is November 22nd. So I would have turned 18 if I would have committed this crime 2 weeks later. I would have been at the age of 18 and not 17. So when I get to the police station, they end up scaring me. They told me I was going to get the electric chair, this was going to happen. So I gave up a statement. But the statement I gave up, I left out the individuals who put me up to it in the beginning. I took it all on myself. I said it was me. I had all this blind loyalty. Finally, my mother came, and then I let them know the other 3 individuals, because the police were saying, "Listen, Mr. David, we don't want you. We want the guys that gave you the gun." So the thing about it is the guys that gave me the gun that put me up to it had already given up a statement prior to me being arrested. The police had found out about me because the police picked them up the night of the crime, and they told them it was the young guy with the brick wall around his house. So they had already given me up. So when I went in the police station, they slammed 3 statements on the table. And they said, "Here's the guys right here that you're trying to stick up for." At that moment, I still did not believe that these individuals had given me up. So ultimately, that night, I ended up going to Youth Study Center in Philadelphia. I had no prior crimes. I had never been in trouble. I just had been in school and working. I was basically given a deal to take a 10 to 20. And when my attorney, who my mother and father had a paid attorney, they paid him quite a bit of money back in 1984. The deal he got me was a 10 to 20, which would have meant I would have gotten out of prison at the age of 27. But at that time, I didn't take the deal. So when they came to me and they said that you're going to get 10 years, I broke down like 10 years. I was like, that was like a lifetime to me, because I understood numerically what that meant. But when they said, if you don't take the 10 to 20, you'll get life, I didn't know what life meant. I really didn't. And so to me, it was like, that was going to be like forever. The other thing they had wanted me to do was to testify on the guys. And after being at the Youth Study Center and then being transferred to Holmesburg Prison in the county jail, my life, they had threatened my life. So I was afraid. A long story short, I ended up going to court. On the day of my sentencing, the judge said, "Mr. David, the district attorney is willing to give you another chance to take the deal." I didn't take the deal. I ended up getting a life sentence. I served 33 years in state prison. I had never been in prison before. While inside the Department of Corrections, I guess I've been transferred probably to 25, 26 jails. I've probably been in all of them over that 33-year period. I went in there and I've had some problems where I went in the hole in the early years. I got in fights, but I got myself together like really quick. I always kept my education. I continued my education. So I actually received a GED while I was incarcerated. And then I started taking college courses. I worked in a library on and off probably for about 15 years. I tried to read every book that I can read on history, politics, economics, how the stock market works, you name it. I tried to read everything I could. So I quickly got past being angry and blaming the judge, blaming my lawyer, blaming my mom, blaming my dad, blaming everybody except myself. And I tell people all the time, the system isn't fair, but a lot of things that we do too to get ourselves in there is not fair to the victim. So there's really 2 sides. So with that mentality, I was once the laws changed And they started seeing the science that the prefrontal lobe of juveniles doesn't fully, or of human beings doesn't fully develop until age 25. Once the law changed, then they said, okay, we no longer are you able to automatically sentence juveniles to life in prison. So they began looking at the mitigating circumstances in cases. Once they looked at the mitigating circumstances, well, maybe you were 17. If your record was good, then you would more than likely be paroled if you served at least 30 years in prison. I had served 30 years. My record was pretty good. I went to parole and they said, see you later. So rather than go back to Philadelphia, I went to Harrisburg because I did not want to go home at 50 years old and eat up all my mother's French toast that I love so much and eggs and cereal. I eat too much. So I told my mother, I said, I'm a grown man. I need to go to a halfway house. I need to get a job so I can take care of myself. So naturally, she was afraid. And she said, you just did 33 years. What are you going to do in Harrisburg, in a city you don't know? But I was confident that, I could come out and work. I said, I'll get a job. That's all I care. So if I get a job, I'll be fine. So while I was inside the prisons, I would always see the Pennsylvania Career Link pamphlets and material. And I used to tell the guys, I'm going to work there one day. Now, when I got out, I didn't know that there was a career link across the street from the corrections facility, the halfway house. So I was so happy of being out for so long, I didn't even see the career link over there. So I ended up going in there. But I went in there not actually looking for a job. I went in there trying to work for them. So the career link is basically, usually they find you jobs, but I went in there looking like offering my service. I felt like, look, I got something to offer you. So I ended up leaving. I worked in a warehouse for $10 an hour. Got a call back to apply, and I ended up getting the job, got the promotion. So now I'm the reentry specialist for South Central Pennsylvania. We have 8 counties. This is after me serving 33 years in prison. And I tell people all the time, the key is not blaming the system. Even if you know that something or someone has wronged you, you have to forgive and move on. So that forgiveness is that you see it, you understand it. And I tell people all the time, if you want to beat the system, stay out of it. We will show you how to stay out of it. That's the plan. That's my job as a mentor, is to show them how to stay out the system. Because if you get a job, you get some training and stuff. And if they have a mentor, if they have that support, then that's pretty much what it is. Like I said, look, I was in there all these years. I know how the guys are in there. Certainly there are individuals who are incarcerated, mistreated, things happen in your life, how you grow up and different things like that. People say, well, Troy, you grew up in a middle-class neighborhood. I said, yeah, but I grew up in a zoo, pretty much. And you can't let the zoo, influence you like that. So I wasn't perfect in there, but my goal is to really give back. So that's why I'm here. That's how I arrived at here. There's a lot more to it, but we will probably be here for a couple of days. And so I'm happy to be here. I'm thankful for all the support that people have with reentry. And there's so many other individuals like me with similar stories who are doing great things. So yeah, thank you.